The word business, it kind of feels like this secret club, right? Like some massive, intimidating engine that runs the whole world. But what if I told you that the password to get in is actually surprisingly simple? Yeah. So let's dive in and just strip away all that noise.
Okay, so when you hear the word business, I'm guessing your mind probably jumps to, skyscrapers, people in fancy suits, maybe some super complicated stock charts on a screen. But look, that's just the facade. At its heart, what business really is, it's way, way simpler. It's just about finding a problem that people have and then creating value by solving it. Seriously, that's the real foundation.
All right, so in this explainer, we are going to get right down to that simple foundation. We're going to look under the hood, see what a business is actually made of, and really reveal the core components that make any, and I mean any, venture tick. So what is a business, really? Let's get a totally jargon-free definition on the table. It's just a repeatable process. That's it. You provide some kind of value, a solution to a problem, fulfilling a desire, to someone else, and in return they give you money. This simple exchange, value for money, that's the fundamental heartbeat of every single business out there.
And get this, it turns out that every single business, I don't care if it's your local window cleaner or a giant like Amazon, is built on the exact same three pillars. You absolutely have to have an offer, that's a thing that helps people. You need a customer, someone who needs that help, and you need a transaction, a way to get paid. If you take even one of those away, well, the whole thing just falls apart.
I mean, just think about it for a second. What happens if one of these pieces is missing? Let's say you've got an offer, but no customers. Well, that's not a business, that's a hobby, right? Okay, what if you have a ton of people who need help, but you don't actually have an offer for them? Well, then you're running a charity. And if you have both the offer and the customers, but no transaction, you're not a business owner, you're a volunteer. See, you gotta have all three.
And this leads to probably the most important mental shift of all. The primary goal of a business isn't just getting rich. The real goal is to serve other people, and to do it effectively. The money is just the applause you get for a job well done. It's the result of serving people well.
Okay, so if business is all about serving others, how does that actually lead to, creating wealth? Well, it all comes down to one fundamental difference, and it's a big one. It's the difference between working in a system versus building one. This right here, this is the critical distinction between having a job and owning a business. See, when you have a job, you're basically caught in what you could call the time trap. Your income is literally just your time multiplied by your rate. You're selling your hours. But in a business, you're not selling hours. You're building a system. Your income is based on the value you create multiplied by how much you can scale it. And the most important part, there's no ceiling on that.
Here's a great way to think about it. In a job, it's like you're carrying buckets of water to a village, one by one. And if you stop carrying those buckets, maybe you get sick, maybe you want a vacation. Well, the village doesn't get any water, and you don't get paid. Simple as that. But when you build a business, you're not carrying buckets. You're building a pipeline. Now look, it's definitely more work up front, for sure. But once that pipeline is built, the water flows automatically. Whether you're standing there or not, the system starts working for you.
Okay, let's say you're sold on this whole pipeline idea. Makes sense, right? But now the big question is, where do you even start? Let's make this actionable. There are really three main paths you can take to get started today, and each one has a totally different vibe. First up, you've got a service business. Think consulting, freelance writing, cleaning, anything where you're selling your skills. This is by far the easiest way to start, often with $0. The downside, it's tough to scale because, well, there's only one of you. Next, you have a product business where you're selling physical stuff. This is super scalable, but you've got upfront costs for things like inventory and shipping. And finally, there's digital. This is that amazing write once, sell forever model. Think online courses or ebooks. The margins are great, but man, you're jumping into a very, very crowded and competitive space.
All right, now before you even think about picking a path, we need to do some house cleaning. We've got to clear out some of that mental garbage that gets in the way. Let's bust the biggest myths that literally paralyze people and stop them from ever taking that first, crucial step.
Okay, myth number one, and this is a huge one. It's that feeling that you have to come up with some completely unique idea, right? Like you have to invent the next big thing, something nobody has ever thought of before. So, is that true?
Nope, not at all. In fact, this might be one of the single most destructive myths in all of business.
Think about it. Google wasn't the first search engine, not by a long shot. And Facebook definitely wasn't the first social network. They just came along and did it better. You don't need to invent, you just need to execute better.
Sometimes all it takes to win is just answering the phone when your competitors don't. It's all about execution.
All right, on to myth number 2, the money barrier. We all do this, right? You see a successful company and just assume they must have started with a giant pile of cash from some investor. So do you really need a lot of money to get off the ground?
And again, it's a huge no. Honestly, that whole idea is a relic. It's a leftover from a world before the internet. Think about it. Right now, today, you can start a service business for literally $0, just using the skills you already have. You can build a digital business using all sorts of free online tools. You can market to millions of people for free using social media. That giant financial wall that used to be there, it's basically gone.
And that brings us to the final myth, and this is the one that's really rooted in fear. It's the idea that starting a business is just way too risky compared to the so-called safety of a steady paycheck. But let's really look at that. Is that actually true?
Let's reframe this whole idea of risk. When you have a job, 100% of your income depends on one single source, your boss. If that one person decides to let you go, your income instantly drops to 0. Now contrast that with a business where you have, say, 100 clients. If you lose one client, well, you still have 99. So let me ask you again, which one of those really sounds riskier?
So here we are. We've stripped away the complexity. We've busted the big myths that hold so many people back. And when you boil it all down, when you get to the very core of it, it all comes back to one simple, incredibly powerful action.
This right here, this is the mantra. This is the entire game in 3 simple steps. Find a problem, solve that problem, and then charge for the solution. That's it. Forget everything else for a second. That is the absolute core of what a business is.
So forget all that complexity. Forget the idea that you need a ton of money. At the end of the day, business is just about service and solutions. So the only real question left, the only thing you really need to figure out, is what problem will you solve?